I'm going to read from the Department of the Army Field Manual FM 21-76 on survival, published in 1957. This is Chapter 4 on food. Section 1, General Considerations. You needn't starve. It takes little reasoning to recognize that, quote, the second of things is food, unquote. This is especially true during a survival episode when you need every ounce of energy and endurance you can muster. Men have been known to live for more than a month without food, but unless you are in extreme circumstances, there is little need to be deprived of something to eat. Nature can be your provider if you know how to use her. Apply the following rules as soon as you realize that you are isolated. 1. Inventory your rations and water. Estimate the length of time you will be on your own. 2. Divide your food. 2/3 for the first half of your isolation and 1/3 for the second half. 3. Avoid dry, starchy, and highly flavored foods and meats if you have less than 1 quart of water for each day. Remember, eating makes you thirsty. Eat food high in carbohydrates, hard candy, fruit bars. 4. Keep strenuous work to a minimum. The less you work, the less food and water you require. 5. Eat regularly if possible. Don't nibble. Plan one good meal each day and cook it if you can. Cooking makes food safer, more digestible, and palatable. Also, the time you spend cooking will give you a rest period. 6. Always be on the lookout for wild food. With few exceptions, everything you see that walks, crawls, swims, or grows from the soil is edible. Learn to live off the land. Section 2, Vegetable Foods. Experts estimate that about 300,000 classified plants grow on the Earth's surface, including many which grow on mountaintops and ocean floors. Of these, 120,000 varieties are edible. Obviously, you won't be able to learn about all of these plants from reading this manual. If you know what to look for in the area in which you find yourself stranded, can identify it, and know how to prepare it properly, you should find enough to keep you alive. You may even surprise yourself with a delicious meal. For the purposes of your study and later use, this manual gives descriptions and pictures of certain edible plants that you can eat. Become familiar with these quote-unquote pilot plants. They will enable you to evaluate the food possibilities of other plants of the same variety. To illustrate, the color of the juice of one plant might lead you to try another one in which the juice seems to be the same color and consistency. Don't limit yourself to studying the illustrations and descriptions of plant food in this manual. Take every opportunity to see these plants in their natural habitat. Then, if you are forced into a survival situation in any area of the world, you will know where the best plant foods of a region are. Many of the edible plants you read about in this manual appear throughout the world. Blackberries and raspberries grow in the Philippines and Siberia as they do in America. Cultivated potatoes, peas, and beans are found in Germany as well as in Canada. And persimmons thrive on Guam just as they do in Georgia. Although plant food may not provide a balanced diet, especially in the Arctic, where the heat-producing qualities of meat are essential, it will sustain you. Many plant foods, like nuts and seeds, will give you enough protein for normal efficiency. In all cases, plants provide energy and calorie-giving carbohydrates. Plants are available everywhere to provide the necessary energy while you forage for wild meat. You can depend on them to keep you alive if you are injured, unarmed in enemy territory, or in an area where wildlife is not abundant. Wild plant food. It is generally safe to try wild plant foods you see being eaten by birds and animals. However, you will find few plants of which every part is edible. Many have one or more identifiable parts that have considerable food or thirst-quenching value. Here is a discussion of the plant parts that contain food value. Roots and other underground parts. These starch-storing foods include tubers, roots, rootstocks, and bulbs. Tubers. All tubers are found below the ground and must be dug. Cook them by boiling or roasting. See Chapter 5. Wild potato. This is an example of an edible tuber. The plant is small and found throughout the world, especially in the tropics. Solomon's seal. Tubers of Solomon's seal grow on small plants that are found in North America, Europe, Northern Asia, and Jamaica. Boiled or roasted, they taste much like parsnips. Water chestnut. The water chestnut is a native of Asia, but it has spread to both tropical and temperate areas of the world, including North America, Africa, and Australia. It is found as a free-floating plant on rivers, lakes, and ponds in quiet water. The plant covers large areas wherever it occurs and has two kinds of leaves. The submerged leaf, which is long, root-like, and feathery, and the floating leaves, which form a rosette on the surface of the water. The nuts borne beneath the water are an inch or two broad, with strong spines that give them the appearance of a horned steer. The seed living within the horny structure may be roasted or boiled. Nutgrass. Nutgrass is widespread in many parts of the world. Look for it in moist, sandy places along the margins of streams, ponds, and ditches. It occurs in both tropical and in temperate climates. The grass differs from true grass in that it has a three-angle stem and thick underground tubers that grow 1/2 to 1 inch in diameter. These tubers are sweet and nutty. Boil and peel and grind them into flour. This flour can be used as a coffee substitute. Taro. The taro grows in moist, forested regions of nearly all tropical countries. It looks much like a calla lily and has leaves up to 2 feet long and stems 5 feet high. A pale yellow flower, about 15 inches long, blooms on this plant. It has an edible tuber growing slightly below ground level. This tuber must be boiled to destroy irritating crystals. After boiling, eat the tuber like a potato. Roots and rootstocks. These plant parts are storage devices rich in starch. Edible roots are often several feet long and are not swollen like tubers. Rootstocks are underground stems, and some are several inches thick and relatively short and pointed. Following are illustrations showing both edible roots and rootstocks. Bulrush. This familiar tall plant is found in North America, Africa, Australia, East Indies, and Malaya. It is usually present in wet, swampy areas. The roots and white stem base may be eaten cooked or raw. Thai plant. This plant is found in tropical climates, especially in the islands of the South Pacific. It is cultivated over wide areas of tropical Asia. In both the wild and cultivated state, it ranges from 6 to 15 feet in height. It has large, coarse, shiny, leathery leaves arranged in crowded fashion at the tips of thick stems. The leaves are green and sometimes reddish. This plant grows a large plume-like cluster of flowers that usually droop. It bears berries that are red when ripe. The fleshy rootstock is edible and full of starch and should be baked for best results. Water plantain. This white-flowered plant is found most frequently around freshwater lakes, ponds, and streams, where it is often partly submerged in a few inches of water. It is usually abundant in marshy areas throughout the north temperate zone and has long-stalked, smooth, heart-shaped leaves with 3 to 9 parallel ribs. Thick bulb-like rootstocks, which grow below the ground, lose their acrid taste after being dried. Cook them like potatoes. Flowering rush. The flowering rush grows along riverbanks, margins of lakes and ponds, and marshy meadows over much of Europe and temperate Asia. It grows in Russia and much of temperate Siberia. The mature plant, usually found growing in a few inches of water, reaches a height of 3 or more feet and has loose clusters of rose-colored and green flowers. The thick, fleshy underground rootstock should be peeled and boiled like potatoes. Tapioca plant. The tapioca or manioc plant is found in all tropical climates, especially in wet areas. It grows to a height of from 3 to 9 feet and has jointed stems and finger-like leaves. There are 2 kinds of manioc that have edible rootstocks, bitter and sweet. The bitter manioc is the common variety in many areas and is poisonous unless cooked. If you find a rootstock of bitter manioc, grind the root into a pulp and cook it for at least 1 hour. Flatten the wet pulp into cakes and bake. Another method of cooking this bitter variety is to cook the roots in large pieces for 1 hour, then peel and grate them. Press the pulp and knead it with water to remove the milky juice. Steam it, then pour it into a plastic mass. Roll the paste into small balls and flatten them into thin cakes. Dry these cakes in the sun and eat baked or roasted. Sweet manioc rootstocks are not bitter and can be eaten raw, roasted as a vegetable, or made into flour. You can use this flour to make dumplings or the cakes described above. Cattail. The cattail is found along lakes, ponds, and rivers throughout the world, except in the tundra and forested regions of the far north. It grows to a height of 6 to 15 feet with erect, still, tape-like, pale green leaves 1/4 to 1 inch broad. Its edible rootstock grows up to 1 inch thick and contains about 46% starch and 11% sugar. To prepare these rootstocks, peel off the outer covering and grate the white inner portion. Eat them boiled or raw. The yellow pollen from the flowers can be mixed with water and steamed as a bread. In addition, the young growing shoots are excellent when boiled like asparagus. Bulbs. All bulbs are high in starch content and, with the exception of the wild onion, are more palatable if they are cooked. Wild onion. This is the most common edible bulb and is a close relative of the cultivated onion. It is found throughout the north temperate zones of North America, Europe, and Asia. The plant grows from a bulb buried 3 to 10 inches below the ground. The leaves vary from grass-like to several inches wide. The plant grows a flower that may be white, blue, or a shade of red. No matter what variety of onion you find, you can detect it by its characteristic quote-unquote oniony odor. Eat the bulb. None is poisonous. Wild tulip. The wild tulip is found in Asia Minor and Central Asia. The bulb of the plant can be cooked and eaten as a substitute for potatoes. The plant bears flowers for a short time in the spring, and these resemble the common garden tulip, except that they are smaller. When red, yellow, or orange flowers are absent, a seed pod can be found as an identifying characteristic. Shoots and stems. Edible shoots grow very similarly to asparagus. The young shoots of ferns and bamboo, for example, make excellent food. Although some can be eaten uncooked, most shoots are better if they are parboiled for 10 minutes, the water drained off and reboiled until they are sufficiently tender for eating. Here are a few of the plants you may find with edible shoots and stems. Mescal. This plant exists in Europe, Africa, Asia, Mexico, and the West Indies. It is a typical desert plant, but also grows in moist tropical areas. The mescal, when fully grown, has thick, tough leaves with stout, sharp tips borne in a rosette. In the center is a stalk that rises like a candle to produce a flowering head. This stalk or shoot is the part to eat. Select plants having flowers not fully developed. Roast the shoot. It contains fibrous, molasses-colored layers that taste sweet. Wild gourd or loofah sponge. This plant is a member of the squash family and grows similarly to watermelon, cantaloupe, and cucumber. It is widely cultivated in tropical areas, and it might be found in a wild state in old gardens or clearings. The vine has leaves 3 to 8 inches across, and the fruit is cylindrical, smooth, and seedy. Boil and eat the fruit when it is half ripe. Make a meal on the tender shoots, flowers, and young leaves after cooking them. You can also roast the seeds and eat them like peanuts. Wild desert gourd. Also a member of the squash family, this creeping plant grows abundantly in the Sahara Desert, Arabia, and on the southeastern coast of India. It produces a vine 8 to 10 feet long that runs over the ground and a gourd that grows to about the size of an orange. The seeds are edible, roasted, or boiled. The flowers also can be eaten, and the water-filled stem shoots can be chewed. Bamboo. This plant grows in the moist areas of warm, temperate, and tropical zones. It is found in clearings, around abandoned gardens, in the forest, and along rivers and streams. Bamboo resembles corn plants and sugar cane and can be easily remembered for its popularity as fishing poles. The mature stems are very hard and woody, while the young shoots are tender and succulent. Cut these young shoots the same as you would cut asparagus, and eat the soft tip ends after boiling. Freshly cut shoots are bitter, but a second change of water eliminates the bitterness. Remove the tough protective sheath around the shoot before you eat it. Also edible is the seed grain of the flowering bamboo. Pulverize this, add water, and press it into cakes, or boil it as you would rice. Edible ferns. Ferns are abundant in moist areas of all climates, especially in forested areas, gullies, along streams, and on the edge of woods. You might mistake them for flowering plants, but by using a little care, you will be able to distinguish them from all other green plants. The undersurface of the leaves is usually covered with masses of brown dots, which themselves are covered with yellow, brown, or black dust. These dots are filled with spores, and their presence makes them easily distinguishable from plants with flowers. Bracken is one of the most widely distributed ferns. It occurs throughout the world, except the Arctic, in open, dry woods, recently burned clearings, and pastures. It is a coarse fern with solitary or scattered young stalks, often 1/2 inch thick at the base, nearly cylindrical and covered with rusty felt. The uncoiling frond is distinctly three-forked, with a purplish spot at each angle. This spot secretes a sweetish juice. Old fronds are conspicuously three-forked, and the rootstock is about 1/4 inch thick, creeping, branching, and woody. On all ferns, select young stalks, fiddleheads, not more than 6 to 8 inches high. Break them off as low as they remain tender. Then close your hand over the stalk and draw it through to remove the wool. Wash and boil in salted water or steam until tender. Leaves. Plants which produce edible leaves are probably the most numerous of all plant foods. You can eat many of them raw or cooked. However, if you cook them, don't cook them too long, as many of the valuable vitamins will be destroyed. Following are some plants with edible leaves. Baobab. This tree is found in open bush country throughout tropical Africa. You can spot it by its enormous girth and swollen trunk and the relatively low stature of the tree. A mature tree 60 feet high may have a trunk 30 feet in diameter. It grows large white flowers about 3 inches across that hang loosely from the tree. The tree also bears a mealy, pulpy fruit with numerous seeds. These are edible, and you can use the leaves as a soup vegetable. Thai plant. See previous discussion on Thai plant. Water lettuce. This plant grows throughout the Old World tropics in both Africa and Asia, and in the New World tropics from Florida to South America. It is found only in very wet places, usually as a floating water plant. Look for it in still lakes, ponds, and backwaters. Look for little plantlets growing from the margins of the leaves. These grow in the shape of a rosette, and they often cover large areas in the regions in which they are found. The plant's leaves look much like lettuce and are very tender. Eat the fresh leaves like lettuce, but eat only those that are well out of the water. Spreading wood fern. This plant is especially abundant in Alaska and Siberia and is found in mountains and woodlands. It sprouts from stout underground stems, which are covered with old leaf stalks that resemble a bunch of small bananas. Roast these leaf stalks and remove the shiny brown covering. Eat the inner portion. In the early spring, collect the young fronds or fiddleheads, boil or steam them, and eat them like asparagus. Horseradish tree. This tropical plant is native to India but is widespread in other tropical countries throughout southern Asia, Africa, and America. Look in abandoned fields and gardens and on the edge of forest areas for a rather low tree, 15 to 45 feet high. The leaves have a fern-like appearance and can be eaten, old or young, fresh or cooked, depending on their state of hardness. At the ends of the branches are flowers and long pendulous fruit that resemble a giant bean. Cut the long, young seed pod into short lengths and cook it like string beans. You can chew young seed pods when they are fresh. The roots of this plant are pungent, and you can grind them for seasoning much as you do true horseradish. Wild dock and wild sorrel. Although these plants are native to the Middle East, they are often abundant in both temperate and tropical countries and in areas of high as well as low rainfall. Look for them in fields, along roadsides, and in waste places. Wild dock is a stout plant with most of its leaves at the base of its 6 to 12 inch stem. It produces a very small, green to purplish plume-like cluster of flowers. Wild sorrel is smaller than dock, but similar in appearance. Many of its basal leaves are arrow-shaped and contain a sour juice. The leaves of both plants are tender, and you can eat them fresh or slightly cooked. To take away the strong taste, change the water once or twice during the cooking. Wild chicory. Originally a native of Europe and Asia, chicory is now generally distributed throughout the United States as a weed along roadsides and in fields. Its leaves are clustered at ground level at the top of a strong underground carrot-like root. The leaves look much like dandelion, but are thicker and rougher. The stems arise 2 to 4 feet and are covered in summer with numerous bright blue heads of flowers, also resembling a dandelion except for color. You can eat the tender young leaves as a salad without cooking and grind the roots as a coffee substitute. Arctic willow. This shrub never exceeds 1 or 2 feet in height and is common on all tundra areas in North America, Europe, and Asia. It grows in clumps which form dense mats on the tundra. You can collect young shoots in the early spring and eat the inner portion raw after stripping off the outer bark. The young leaves are a rich source of vitamin C, containing 5 to 10 times more than oranges. Lotus lily. This plant grows in freshwater lakes, ponds, and slow streams from the Nile Basin through Asia to China and Japan and southward to India. It also grows in the Philippines, Indonesia, northern Australia, and eastern United States. The leaves of the lotus lily are shield-shaped, 1 to 3 feet across. They stand 5 to 6 feet above the surface of the water and grow either pink, white, or yellow flowers, 4 to 10 inches in diameter. Eat the young stems and leaves after you cook them, but remove the tough outer layer of the young stems before cooking or eating. The seeds are also edible when ripe. Remove the bitter embryo, then boil or roast them. Also edible are the rootstocks, which become 50 feet long with tuberous enlargements. Boil these and eat them like potatoes. Papaya. This tree grows in all tropical countries, especially in moist areas. You will find it around clearings and former habitations, and also in open sunny places in uninhabited jungle areas. The papaya tree is small, 6 to 20 feet tall, with a soft, hollow trunk that will break under your weight if you try to climb it. This trunk is rough, and the leaves are crowded at the top. The yellow or greenish fruit grows among and below the leaves, directly from the trunk, and is squash-shaped. It is high in vitamin C, and you can eat it raw or cooked. The milky sap of unripe fruit is a good meat tenderizer if you rub it into the meat. Be careful not to get this juice into your eyes. It will cause intense pain and temporary or even permanent blindness. Also edible are the young papaya leaves, flowers, and stems. Cook them carefully and change the water at least twice. Wild rhubarb. This plant grows from southeastern Europe to Asia Minor through the mountainous regions of Central Asia to China and can be found in open places, along the borders of woods and streams, and on mountain slopes. The large leaves grow from the base of long, stout stalks. These stalks flower and rise above the large leaves and may be boiled and eaten as vegetable. Prickly pear. This plant is native to America, but grows in many desert areas of the Old World and Australia. It is found in the southwestern United States, Mexico, South America, and along the shores of the Mediterranean. It has a thickened stem about an inch in diameter, which is full of water. The outside is covered with clusters of very sharp spines, spaced at intervals, and the plant grows yellow or red flowers. Do not mistake this plant for other kinds of thick, fleshy cactus-like plants, especially those in Africa. The spurges of Africa look like cactuses, but contain a milky, poisonous juice. The prickly pear never gives a milky juice. You can eat the egg-shaped fruit growing at the top of the cactus. Slice off the top of the fruit, peel back the outer layer, and eat the contents, seeds and all. Also edible are the prickly pear pads. Cut away the spines and slice the pad lengthwise into strips like string beans. Eat them raw or boiled. Nuts. Nuts are among the most nutritious of all plant foods and contain valuable protein. Plants bearing edible nuts grow in all climatic zones and continents of the world except the Arctic. You are probably familiar with nuts of the temperate zones, such as walnuts, filberts, almonds, hickory nuts, acorns, hazelnuts, beech nuts, and pine nuts. Tropical zone nuts include coconuts, Brazil nuts, cashew nuts, and macadamia nuts. Following are some examples of nuts that you can eat. English walnut. In the wild state, this nut is found from southeastern Europe across Asia to China. It is abundant in the Himalayas and grows on a tree that sometimes reaches 60 feet tall. The leaves of the tree are divided and are characteristic of all walnut species. The walnut itself is enclosed by a thick outer husk, which must be removed to reach the hard inner shell of the nut. The nut kernel ripens in autumn. Hazelnut, filbert. Hazelnuts are found over wide areas of the United States, especially the eastern half of the country. They grow also in Europe and Eastern Asia from the Himalayas to China and Japan. Growing mostly on bushes 6 to 12 feet tall, hazelnuts exist in dense thickets along stream banks and open places. The nut is enveloped by a bristly, long-necked husk. It ripens in the fall. You can eat it either in the dried or fresh, unripe stage and derive great food value from its oil content. Chestnut. Wild chestnuts are highly useful as a survival food. They grow in Central and Southern Europe, from Central Asia to China and Japan. The European chestnut is the most common variety. It grows along the edge of meadows and is a forest tree some 60 feet in height. You can prepare either the ripe or unripe nut by roasting it in embers or by boiling the kernel that lies within the shell. If you boil the nut, mash it like potatoes before eating it. Almond. Wild almonds grow in the semi-desert areas of southern Europe, the eastern Mediterranean area, Iran, Arabia, China, Madeira, the Azores, and the Canary Islands. The almond tree resembles a peach tree and sometimes grows 40 feet tall. The fruit, found in clusters all over the tree, looks somewhat like a gnarled, unripened peach, with its stone, the almond itself, covered with a thick, dry, woolly skin. To get at the almond nut, split the fruit down the side, then crush open the hard stone. It is a good idea to gather and shell them in large quantities for further use as a survival food, because you can live for a long period on nothing but almonds. Acorns, English oak. There are many varieties of oaks, but the English oak is typical of those found in the North Temperate Zone. It often grows 60 feet tall and the leaves are deeply lobed. The acorns grow out of a cup and are not edible raw because of the bitter tannin properties of the kernel. Boil the acorns for 2 hours. Pour off the water and soak the nut in cold water. Change the water occasionally, and after 3 to 4 days, grind the acorns into paste. Make the paste into mush by mixing it with water and cooking it. You can make flour out of this paste by spreading and drying it. Beechnut. Beechnut trees grow wild in moist areas of the eastern United States, Europe, Asia, and North Africa. They are common throughout southeastern Europe and across temperate Asia, but do not grow in tropical or subarctic areas. The beechnut is a large tree, sometimes reaching 80 feet in height, with smooth, light gray bark and dark green foliage. Mature beechnuts fall out of their husk-like seed pods, and you can get to the nut by breaking the thin shell with your fingernail. Roast and pulverize the kernel, then boil the powder for a passable coffee substitute. Swiss stone pine. Although it is unnecessary to distinguish between pines in order to use the pine nut, the Swiss pine shown in Figure 74 will give you an idea of what this tree has to offer. Swiss stone pine is distributed widely in Europe and northern Siberia. Like all pines, it is evergreen with needles growing in bunches. The edible seeds or nuts grow in woody cones, which hang either separately or in clusters near the tips of the branches. The nuts grow at the base of the cone scales, and when mature, will fall out of the ripe cone. Eat these raw or roasted. Water chestnut, see previous description. Tropical almond. The Indian or tropical almond tree is widely dispersed in all tropical countries and is found in abandoned fields, gardens, along roadsides, and upon sandy seacoasts. It sometimes grows 100 feet tall. The edible seeds or kernels growing at the tips of the branches are surrounded by a spongy, husk-like covering from 1 to 3 inches long. These kernels have an almond-like consistency and flavor. Coconut. The coconut palm is widely cultivated, but grows wild throughout much of the moist tropics. It exists mainly near the seashore, but it sometimes grows some distance inland. This tall, unbranched tree sometimes reaches 90 feet. The nuts grow in large clusters and hang downward among the leaves. The two most valuable parts of the coconut palm are the cabbage and the nut. The cabbage is the snow-white heart at the top of the tree. Eat it cooked, raw, or mixed with vegetables. The nut is most useful in the drinking and mature stage. In the drinking stage, split the nut and scoop out the meat with a spoon fashioned from the outside husk. In the mature stage, crack the nut, loosen the meat, and eat it fresh, grated, or dried to copra. Let the milk stand for a short time so that the oil will separate from it, and you will be able to use it for food or drink. You can also eat sprouting coconuts. Husk and split them open, or simply crack them in half. Eat the white spongy material inside. To remove the purgative or physic qualities of this meat, cook it before eating. Wild pistachio nut. About 7 types of wild pistachio nuts occur in desert or semi-desert areas surrounding the Mediterranean, in Asia Minor, and Afghanistan. Some are evergreen, while others lose their leaves during the dry season. The leaves alternate on the stem and have either 3 large leaves or a number of leaflets. The nuts are hard and dry when mature, Eat them after parching them over coals. Cashew nut. This nut grows in all tropical climates on a spreading evergreen tree that reaches a height of 40 feet. The leaves are 8 inches long and 4 inches wide. The flowers are yellowish pink. The fruit is thick, pear-shaped, pulpy, and red or yellow when ripe, with a kidney-shaped nut growing at its tip. This nut encloses one seed and is edible roasted. Be careful of the green hull surrounding the nut. It contains an irritant poison that will blister your eyes and tongue like poison ivy. This poison is destroyed when the nuts are roasted. Seeds and grains. The seeds of many plants, such as buckwheat, ragweed, amaranth, goosefoot, and the beans and peas from bean-like plants contain oils rich in protein. The grains of all cereals and many other grasses are also rich in plant protein. They may either be ground between stones, mixed with water and cooked to make porridge, or parched. Grains, like corn, can also be preserved in this manner for future use. Following are some plants with edible seeds and grains. Baobab and sorrel, see previous discussions. Sea orach. You will find this plant along seashores from the Mediterranean countries to inland areas in North Africa and eastward to Asia Minor and central Siberia. It is thinly branched with small edible gray-colored leaves about an inch long. The flowers grow in narrow, densely compacted spikes at the tips of the branches. St. John's bread. This tree grows in arid wastelands bordering the Mediterranean Sea on the fringes of the Sahara, across Arabia, Iran, and into India. It is evergreen and reaches a height of 40 to 50 feet. The tree's leaves are leathery and glistening, with 2 to 3 pairs of leaflets, while its flowers are small and red. A seed pod grows on the tree that has a sweet edible pulp. You can pulverize the seeds that are within the pod and cook them as porridge. Loofah, see description above. Rice. Rice normally grows in wet areas as a cultivated plant. It is found in tropical and warm temperate countries throughout the world. However, wild rice exists in Asia, Africa, and parts of the United States. It is a coarse grass growing to a height of 3 to 4 feet with rough, hard leaf blades 1/2 to 2 inches wide. The rice grains grow inside a hairy, straw-colored covering out of which the mature grains shatter when ripe. Roast these rice grains and beat them into a fine flour. You can carry this as a powder. Combine the flour with palm oil to make cakes. Wrap these in large green leaves and carry them for future use. You can also prepare rice by boiling it. Lotus lily, see discussion above. Goa bean. This plant grows in tropical Africa, Asia, and the East Indies, the Philippines, and Formosa. It represents an edible bean common to the Old World tropics and is found in clearings and around abandoned gardens. The Goa bean is a climbing plant covering trees and shrubs and has a bean 9 inches long, leaves 6 inches long, and bright blue flowers. The mature pods are 4-angled with jagged wings. Eat the young pods like string beans and the mature seeds by parching or roasting them over hot coals. Eat the roots raw and the young leaves raw or steamed. Bamboo, see above discussion. Fruits. Edible fruits are plentiful in nature and can be classified as dessert or vegetable. Dessert fruits include the familiar blueberry and crowberry of the north and the cherry, raspberry, plum, and apple of the temperate zone. Vegetable fruits are the common cultivated tomato, cucumber, pepper, eggplant, and okra. You are probably familiar with many of the wild berries and fruits of the United States. However, to refresh your memory on the familiar ones and perhaps increase your knowledge of those growing in other areas, here are some that you may contact. Rose apple. This tree is native to the Indo-Malayan region, but has been planted widely in most other tropical countries. This small tree, 10 to 30 feet high, also appears in a semi-wild state in thickets, waste places, and secondary forests. It has tapering leaves about 8 inches long and greenish-white flowers up to 3 inches across. The fruit is 2 inches in diameter, greenish or yellow, and has a rose-like odor. It is excellent fresh or cooked with honey or palm sap. Wild huckleberries, blueberries, and whortleberries. Large patches of wild huckleberries overflow with ripe fruit on the tundra in Europe, Asia, and America in late summer. Farther south throughout the northern hemisphere, these berries and their close relatives, the blue and whortleberry, are common. When they appear in the tundra of the north, these wild berries grow on low bushes. Their relatives to the south are borne on taller shrubs, which may reach 6 feet in height. Look for them to be red, blue, or black when ripe. Cloudberry. The cloudberry is native to the tundra of Scandinavia, northern Asia, and North America. It grows on an erect plant which covers large areas of ground and is seldom over 1 foot high in the southern limit of its distribution and only a few inches tall on the tundra. The fruit is borne at the top of the plant and is yellow when ripe. It is one of several kinds of wild berries related to the blackberry, raspberry, and dewberry. Mulberry. Mulberry trees grow in North and South America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. In the wild state, they are found in forested areas, along roadsides, and in abandoned fields, and often grow 20 to 60 feet tall. The fruit looks like blackberry and is 1 to 2 inches long. Each berry is about as thick as your finger and varies in color from red to black. Wild grapevine. This climbing plant is found throughout eastern and southwestern United States, Mexico, Mediterranean areas, Asia, East Indies, Australia, and Africa. It overruns other vegetation where it occurs. Its leaves are deeply lobed and are similar to cultivated grapes. The fruit hangs in bunches and is rich in natural, energy-giving sugar. You can also extract water from the grapevine. Baobab, see discussion above. Wild crab apple. This fruit is common in the United States, temperate Asia, and in Europe. Look for it in open woodlands, on the edge of woods, or in fields. The apple looks sufficiently like its tame relative to be easily recognized whenever you might find it. If you wish to store up some food for future use, you can cut this fruit into thin slices and dry it. Bale fruit. This fruit grows on a small citrus-type tree and is related to oranges, lemons, and grapefruit. It is found wild in the region of India bordering the Himalayan mountains, in central and southern India, and in Burma. The tree is 8 to 15 feet tall with a dense and spiny growth, while the fruit is 2 to 4 inches in diameter, gray or yellowish, and full of seeds. Eat the fruit when it is just turning ripe, or mix the juice with water for a tart but refreshing drink. Like other citrus fruits, this is rich in vitamin C. Wild fig. Most of the 800 varieties of wild figs grow in tropical and subtropical areas, having abundant rainfall. However, a few desert kinds exist in America. The trees are evergreen with large leathery leaves. Look in abandoned gardens, along roadways and trails, and in fields for a tree with long aerial roots growing from its trunk and branches. After identifying the tree, look for the fig fruit which grows out directly from the branches. The fruit resembles a child's top or a pear. Many varieties are hard and woody and covered with irritating hairs and otherwise worthless as a survival food. The edible type is soft when ripe, almost hairless, green, red, or black in color. Plants with vegetable-type fruit include wild caper. This plant grows either as a spring shrub or a small tree about 20 feet tall in North Africa, Arabia, India, and Indonesia. It is leafless with spine-covered branches, flowers and fruit that grow near the tips of the branches. Eat the fruit as well as the flower buds. Breadfruit. The breadfruit is a common tropical tree. It grows up to 40 feet tall with leathery leaves 1 to 3 feet long. The fruit is delicious when ripe, and you can prepare it using the following methods. Eat the fruit raw or grilled on the embers of an open fire. Scrape it lightly with your knife, or to eat raw, remove the skin first. Then pick off the lumps of flesh with your fingers, separating the seeds and discarding the hard outer covering. To prepare for grilling, scrape the fruit and remove the stalk. Wild gourd and water plantain, see above discussion. Barks. The inner bark of a tree, the layer next to the wood, may be eaten raw or cooked. You can even make flour from the inner bark of cottonwood, aspen, birch, willow, and pine tree by pulverizing it. Avoid the outer bark because of the presence of large amounts of tannin. Pine bark is rich in vitamin C. Scrape away the outer bark and strip the inner bark from the trunk. Eat it fresh, dried, or cooked, or pulverize it into flour. Fungi. About 16,000 varieties of edible fungi grow in different parts of the world. The mushrooms you eat on your steaks and the mold in the blue cheese that you spread on crackers are two forms of fungi. Although fungi are not a good substitute for meat, they are comparable in food content to common leafy vegetables, and they often are available in areas where other edible plants are scarce. Gilled fungi, or mushrooms, are the most common of edible fungi and are 98% safe to eat, but they have been subjected to many quote-unquote old wives' tales and thus are considered untouchable foods by many people. The term quote-unquote toadstools, for example, has been used so much to describe any inedible or poisonous variety of mushroom that people apply this name to most unfamiliar varieties. The distinguishing characteristics of toadstools, such as odor, peeling of skin bruises, and livid colors, may also be present in the edible forms. The best way to tell the difference is to study the general characteristics of both the edible and poisonous varieties. Supplement this information with the following list of hints for selecting edible mushrooms. A. Dig the gilled mushroom completely out of the ground. Eliminate those having a cup or vulva at the base. B. Avoid all gilled mushrooms in the young stage. This young mushroom will have a button-like appearance and may be distinguished from the young edible puffball because it will have a short stem, not a characteristic of the puffball. C. Avoid all ground-growing mushrooms with the underside of the cup full of minute reddish spores. D. Avoid gilled mushrooms with membrane-like cups or scaly bulbs at the base, especially if the gills are white. E. Avoid all gilled mushrooms with white or pale milky juice. F. Avoid all gilled woodland mushrooms with a smooth, flat, reddish top and white gills radiating out from the stem-like spokes. G. Avoid yellow or yellowish-orange mushrooms growing on old stumps. If they have crowded and solid stems, convex overlapping cups, broad gills extending irregularly down the stem, or surfaces that glow phosphorescently in the dark, they are probably poisonous. H. Avoid any mushroom which seems to be too ripe, water-soaked, spoiled, or maggoty. I. Become familiar with the following poisonous mushrooms of an ammonite family. The most deadly is the death angel. The death angel is widespread in Europe, Asia, and America, but seems to be more common in north temperate regions. This plant produces one of the toxalbumin poisons, the poisons found in rattlesnakes and other venomous animals, and the poisons that produce death in cholera and diphtheria. The amount of this fungus necessary to produce death is small. J. If you get sick after eating mushrooms, tickle the back of your throat to induce vomiting. Do not drink water until after you vomit. Then drink lukewarm water and powdered charcoal. All non-gilled fungi are non-poisonous when eaten fresh. A familiar example of a non-gilled fungus is the puffball. Others include morels, coral fungi, coral hydnums, and cup fungi. Seaweeds. Properly prepared seaweed found near or on the shore of the larger ocean areas is quite edible and can be an important part of your diet. It is a valuable source of iodine and vitamin C. When you select seaweed for food, choose plants attached to rocks or floating free because those have been laying on the beach for any length of time may be spoiled or decayed. You can dry the thin, tender varieties over a fire or in the sun until they are crisp, and then crush and use them for soup flavoring. Wash the thick, leathery seaweeds and soften them by boiling. Eat these varieties with other foods. Following are some edible seaweeds that you might find. Green seaweeds, often called sea lettuce, grow in the Pacific and North Atlantic Oceans. Wash in clean water and use them as you would garden lettuce. Edible brown seaweeds include sugar rack. The young stalks of this plant are sweet and are found on both sides of the Atlantic and on the coasts of China and Japan. Kelp. This seaweed is found in both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans below the high tide line on submerged ledges and rocky bottoms. It has a short cylindrical stem and thin, waxy olive green or brown fronds from 1 to several feet long. Boil it before eating, then mix with vegetables or soup. Irish moss. This moss is found on both sides of the Atlantic. It is tough, elastic, and leathery, and you can find it below the high tide line or upon the shore. Boil before eating. Red seaweeds have a characteristic reddish tint and include dulse. This has a short stem which quickly broadens into a thin, broad, fan-shaped leaf. The leaf is dark red and divided by several clefts into short, round-tipped lobes. Varying from a few inches to a foot in length, this plant is attached to rocks or coarser seaweeds and is found on the Atlantic and Mediterranean coasts. It is sweet to taste and can be dried and rolled and used as chewing tobacco. Laver. This seaweed is common to the Atlantic and Pacific areas and is usually red, dark purple, or purplish brown with a satiny sheen or filmy luster. Use it as a relish, boil it gently until tender, or pulverize it. Add it to crushed grains and fry it in the form of flat cakes. Look for this plant on the beach at low tide. Freshwater algae is a variety of seaweed common to China, America, and Europe. One of the more familiar varieties is nostoc, and you will find it during the spring in pools. It forms green, round, jelly-like lobules about the size of marbles. Dry this plant and use it in soups. Cultivated vegetables. Harvested vegetable or grain fields are rich sources of food. Keep your eyes open for old potato, corn, and turnip fields and harvested pea patches in Europe and the temperate countries of Asia. If you discover a potato field, dig into the hills for potatoes that were overlooked when the field was harvested. Eat the potatoes raw or cooked. Look for fields with vegetable stalks that remain in the ground after harvest. These include turnips, rutabagas, carrots, beets, and radishes. You can eat any of these cooked or raw. However, peel or otherwise clean these foods before eating to eliminate the dangers caused by contamination from fertilizers. In abandoned cornfields, search the ground for discarded ears. Eat kernels raw, cooked, or parched as panole, a highly nutritious food made by parching corn in hot ashes or over a fire and grinding it into flour. A handful of this and water makes a nutritious and tasty combination.